Cryptocurrency has been around for nearly 13 years. It began as nothing more than an experiment in decentralized money and has since grown to become a multi-trillion-dollar industry. This is starting to threaten the powers that be, and some countries have literally declared war on cryptocurrency. As crypto continues to succeed, attempts by countries to contain it will only become more common. So today I'm going to look at just how bad things could get and how cryptocurrency will win out in the end. Alright, you know the drill. There's a disclaimer I need to spill. I know throwing cash into crypto can give you a thrill, but I'm not a financial advisor and I'm also not a shill. Always do your own research before you put down any bills. If you're confused, you must be new. My name is Guy and crypto is what I do. The Coin Bureau contains the kind of quality crypto content that will grow your brain. Coins, tokens, news, reviews, technical analysis, tutorials, market moves. If it's crypto related, I can explain. If this sounds good to you, subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell so you'll know when my next video hits the tube. If you've got things to do or places to be, you can use the timestamps below to skip ahead to any topics you can't wait to see. If you can, watch until the end. It's what the experts recommend. So now that you're in the know, let me tell you about the worst case for crypto. In the introduction, I said that cryptocurrency has been around for almost 13 years. Now this isn't entirely correct. Although Bitcoin has been around since 2009, the first cryptocurrency was actually eCash, and it was created by computer scientist David Chaum in 1983. The term cryptocurrency didn't even exist back then, but the concept of cryptography, which lies at the core of cryptocurrency, is likely as old as written language. In his MIT lectures on cryptocurrency, SEC Chairman Gary Gensler defined cryptography as, quote, communication in the presence of adversaries. Cryptography can be found in Egyptian hieroglyphs dating back to 1900 BC, when some Egyptian tribes used irregular hieroglyphs to secretly relay important messages. Cryptography can also be found in the browser or mobile application you're using to watch this video. Without it, anything you typed on your computer or phone would be visible to everyone on the internet. In cryptocurrency, cryptography is used to make sure that only you can control the coins or tokens in your cryptocurrency wallet. This is a small but significant detail because it's a big part of why cryptocurrency is the antithesis of the current financial system. Any transactions you make using a financial institution, be it a bank or a broker, are also cryptographically secured. However, these assets are not actually controlled by you. They are controlled by the institution you're interacting with, and though they do give you a lot of leeway as to what you can do with those assets, at the end of the day, they have the final say. Banks can prevent you from making certain purchases, as we've seen with Barclays here in the UK, and brokers can prevent you from buying certain stocks, as we've seen with Robinhood in the United States. As physical cash becomes less common and central bank digital currencies are implemented, the control these institutions wield over your assets will only increase. The fact that cryptocurrencies allow you to control your assets is why they are valuable and why they will always have value. Control over your assets isn't enough, however, because even if an institution can't control your assets directly, they can still control those assets indirectly through coercion and sanctions. Most cryptocurrency transactions are publicly viewable, and that means all an institution needs to do is monitor where those transactions are going and apply pressure where applicable. These pressure points include exchanges, fiat-to-crypto payment gateways, OTC desks, and even individuals if their identities have been linked to their cryptocurrency wallet address with KYC. Once a pressure point has been identified, punitive measures can be applied to the associated party, and this will discourage them from interacting with the entity the institution is actually targeting. The perfect protection against this scenario is privacy, and I reckon this is the real reason why privacy-oriented cryptocurrencies and projects are public enemy number one to regulators around the world. While it is true that privacy coins are sometimes used to pay for all manner of immoral material, it's also true that all attempts at curbing criminal activity through financial regulations have done anything but. According to a 2020 paper from the Journal of Policy Design and Practice, quote, anti-money laundering policy intervention has less than 0.1% impact on criminal financing. This is simply because human corruption cannot be regulated. Every regulatory authority consists of humans whose cooperation can be purchased by criminals for a fee. Everyone has a price. The important thing is to find out what it is, as Pablo Escobar is supposed to have said. Now, despite these facts, it's likely that regulators will continue pressuring centralized exchanges to delist privacy coins on the grounds that they facilitate money laundering and other criminal activities. Again, this pressure doesn't have to be that direct. For example, Kraken and Binance US are currently planning to IPO like Coinbase did. How much do you want to bet that regulators will tell them they have to delist XMR first? Even though Monero isn't available on Binance US, it is trading on Binance, and given the close relationship between the two exchanges, this is a move that regulators could very well try and pull. It's not just Monero either. Over time and through various methods, it's likely that every privacy coin will be delisted from centralized exchanges, with few exceptions. Some survivors might include privacy coins that were built with compliance in mind, such as Secret Network, which keeps smart contract transactions private but lets you reveal your token holdings to anyone who asks. As for Monero, the recent completion of its long-awaited atomic swap technology will hopefully allow XMR to maintain enough market liquidity and accessibility via BTC. Cross-chain crypto projects such as Thorchain are also working on integrating XMR, which would be an ideal substitution for centralized exchanges. This brings me to the second crypto niche that will likely get wrecked by regulators, and that's decentralized finance. This is because DeFi protocols allow you to do things like lend, borrow, and save without a bank, and trade stocks and commodities without a broker, and much of the current financial system consists of banks and brokers. The total value locked in DeFi protocols is currently around $180 billion, and though this might not sound like much, that's more than a 400x increase since last spring, and the trend here is pretty clear. It's only a matter of time before DeFi becomes big enough to challenge the banks and brokers it's been built to replace. These institutions aren't going to go down without a fight, and we're not their only foes. As I mentioned in a recent video, it turns out that a lot of big investors are big fans of DeFi. This has some of them fighting the banks behind the scenes for influence over regulatory bodies like the SEC. Now, the most likely middle ground here is that accessing DeFi protocols will require completing KYC, and the companies behind them will have to register with the SEC and other regulatory authorities. The thing is that it won't be possible to regulate all these DeFi protocols, and this could lead regulators down a more destructive path. One of these would be to go after the companies that built the cryptocurrencies hosting these DeFi protocols and force them to collect KYC on everyone using them. This would be very difficult to do for a cryptocurrency like Ethereum, but it is very possible to demand from some Ethereum Layer 2s, specifically Polygon. According to Polygon's documentation, 3 of the 4 smart contracts which connect Polygon to Ethereum are controlled by multi-sig wallets, one of which only requires 2 signatories to change. This means that all regulators would have to do to pressure Polygon is to find these key holders and tell them to comply or else. Select smart contract cryptocurrencies could also be coerced in a similar way due to their centralization, and I'll let you figure out which ones those are on your own time. If regulators were really determined, they could also target proof-of-stake cryptocurrencies. That's because in the absence of any elaborate governance structures, regulators could buy up the voting power they need to implement KYC and pressure any well-known whales to vote in favor of their regulatory proposals. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you haven't seen my video on the difference between proof of work and proof of stake, and that is in the top right, if you please. Another radical measure regulators could employ as part of their crusade against DeFi is to dismantle stablecoins. Stablecoins are not only integral to DeFi, but also cryptocurrency trading. This is because most of the trading volume takes place against USDT and USDC. Stablecoin growth has been exponential as a result, and their collective market caps total well over $100 billion. Now, the $100 billion mark was hit in August, and that's when US regulators really started to take notice. The thing is that stablecoins have already been a concern in other countries for months. This is because easy access to digital dollars means some countries are at risk of dollarization. In a worst-case scenario, their citizens could jump ship and switch completely to stablecoins like USDT and USDC. The consequence of this is that the country in question would lose total control of its financial sovereignty and would be completely at the mercy of the monetary policy of the United States. Now, this is a preferable outcome as far as the United States is concerned, which is likely why regulators are tiptoeing around the tether-shaped elephant in the room. What this means is that the incoming stablecoin crackdown will probably look more like a surgical procedure, and the endgame will be to bring stablecoin issuers under the government's wing. However, this will be a short-term measure because the United States has digital dollar plans of its own, and it's not going to want any competition. As I mentioned in my most recent video about CBDCs, the United States will be testing quantum-resistant technology for its CBDC next year. USD CBDC tests are already technically underway, and I would argue that stablecoin issuers like Circle and Paxos are not so subtle when it comes to participation in them. In any case, this makeshift roadmap suggests we won't see an actual stablecoin crackdown for at least another year, and this is more than enough time to develop decentralized alternatives. One decentralized stablecoin I've been keeping a close eye on is Terra's UST, and you can find out why by following the link in the top right. Now, I know the scenarios I've outlined so far don't sound so bad, and it's great that there are some countermeasures in place. However, the success of these countermeasures depends on one thing that regulators are also targeting, and that's cryptocurrency custody. If you didn't already know, any cryptocurrency you buy on a centralized exchange doesn't actually belong to you until you've withdrawn it to your own cryptocurrency wallet. The reason why you should always do this is because centralized exchanges can be hacked, and the more crypto there is on an exchange, the higher the likelihood that this will happen because humans are corruptible. More importantly, centralized exchanges retain full control of the assets in your account in the same way that banks and brokers do, meaning they can restrict your account for whatever reason. This custodial setup is what regulators want for cryptocurrency because it gives them control of every coin and token via the centralized exchange or whatever custodian you're using to hold your crypto. It would also make it very easy for regulators to introduce regulations to proof-of-stake cryptocurrencies, as centralized custodians would hold all the tokens that provide the voting power. The banks and brokers also want this custodial setup so long as they are the custodians, because it means they can engage in fractional reserve crypto banking and other shenanigans we see in gold and silver. The scary thing is that even big crypto investors want this custodial setup because it creates more liquidity in the crypto market. Put simply, if all the cryptocurrency is being custodied somewhere, it makes it much easier to access and trade. This obviously isn't the case if most of it is being hodled in self-hosted cryptocurrency wallets. More importantly, BTC is required to create payment channels on the Lightning Network, and if governments continue adopting Bitcoin, they're going to need BTC for these payment channels. Because of these and other factors, I foresee regulators preventing individuals from holding their own crypto in the coming years, and it's worth pointing out that something like this has happened before. In 1934, the Gold Reserve Act made it illegal for US citizens to hold investment-grade gold on the grounds that it was a threat to economic stability. A similar law could eventually be passed for BTC on the same grounds. The difference is that this time around it would be much easier to enforce since almost all cryptocurrency transactions are transparent. This means that it would be easy for regulators to track down any BTC that's not being centrally custodied and threaten to punish any identifiable parties who dare to receive that tainted BTC. The good news is that if these kinds of regulations come into play, someone somewhere will come up with a way to circumvent them, and it's unlikely they would exist in every country. After all, there are some countries that are embracing cryptocurrency, such as El Salvador, and this trend is likely to continue. Now, you can learn more about the countries that could adopt crypto using the link up there. Now, the last worst-case scenario for crypto that I want to talk about today is one that doesn't get talked about enough, and that's cryptocurrency's technologies being co-opted by the powers that be. This seems to be why regulators haven't really put in the effort to kill crypto. This industry is evolving quickly, and the technologies coming out of it are revolutionary. Because almost all cryptocurrency code is open source, this makes it quite easy for institutions to copy and paste what crypto developers have made and tweak it to maximize the control they have over their customers or citizens. Institutions are currently having trouble implementing their dystopian creations because of a chronic shortage of crypto developers who are willing to work for an annual salary worth a fraction of what they would make for building a solid dApp or launching a cool NFT. However, this dynamic is likely to change as more crypto developers enter the space over time, and a lot of them will be willing to do this kind of dirty work when the next bear market sets in. Not only that, but there are a few cryptocurrency projects that are actively advertising themselves to institutions as the perfect partner on their quest for total control. One of these cryptocurrency projects is the Internet Computer, and if the name didn't give it away, its goal is to replace the entirety of the Internet with its own concerningly centralized infrastructure. The Swiss-based DeFi Foundation, which built the Internet Computer, seems to have close connections to the World Economic Forum and showcased its creation at last year's infamous Davos conference. Using the Internet Computer requires creating a digital identity which is stored on an immutable blockchain connected to your mobile phone and/or computer. And speaking of mobile phones, the DeFi Foundation is also creating an operating system called Endorphin, which will connect to the Internet Computer. The Internet Computer is governed by ICP token holders, and voting power depends on how long tokens have been locked up for. Can you guess which entity seems to have the most voting power on the Internet Computer? Now, don't get me wrong, this sort of technology is incredible, and the Internet Computer is seriously impressive and powerful. The thing is that this technology can be used for both good and evil. On the off chance that something like the Internet Computer gets implemented by institutions around the world, it would be next to impossible to escape their control, even with cryptocurrency, because the Internet itself would be compromised. Then again, decentralized wireless networks like Helium could offer a way out, and you can learn all about that by watching my most recent video on it. When I first got into crypto, I remember hearing those wise words of advice. Only invest what you can afford to lose, because crypto could go to zero. I haven't heard that phrase in a long time, and I think that's because it's become clear that crypto will never go to zero. This is simply because having control over your hard-earned assets has an intrinsic value regardless of what the dollar sign says from day to day. This is something that people are only starting to realize, and I reckon it's reflected in the exponential growth cryptocurrency has seen over the years. Now, I'm not saying that every cryptocurrency will survive. On the contrary, many of them will fail. Cryptocurrency is competitive enough as it is. Regulations add another dimension of natural selection, and it's imperative that privacy coins survive. Without privacy, there is no freedom, and this doesn't just apply to finance either. Even though the internet is technically secured by cryptographic protocols like HTTPS, we all know that the sites and apps we use are harvesting our data like there's no tomorrow. This will become an ever more potent pressure point for institutions as time goes on, and holding XMR won't provide any protection against being booted out of the public square. This is why I really think the biggest risk to crypto is a total takeover of the infrastructure it is built on. This includes not just the internet, but the devices we use to access it. There are some disturbing developments on that front too, but luckily there's still enough free market there to keep those kinds of threats at bay for the time being. Still, there's no denying the growth of centralized control that we're currently seeing around the world. The decentralized world of cryptocurrency is growing faster, and if it can keep up the pace, then it might just manage to make the world a better place. If you agree, go on a clicking spree. Like, subscribe, hit the bell button, and tell me what you think the worst case for crypto is and why. In case you didn't know, I have a second channel where you can get a sneak peek at what goes on behind the scenes at the Coin Bureau. I'm also active on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and give you a quick rundown of the crypto market every day on Telegram. My weekly newsletter is the real deal, though. It's got everything from tips, tricks, and trade secrets to a detailed breakdown of my personal crypto portfolio. You can also cop a hoodie or tee at the Coin Bureau merch store if you want to support me and the team. You can find your way there and to many other places by using the links in the description below. Many thanks for your time and attention. Remember to always question. See you later, Crypto Cats.